Okay, I'm going to call the city council meeting to order. I'm going to start with the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Raymond. Well, we're going to start with the invocation. All right, roll call, please.
Kale is absent. Ambrose?
Here.
Button?
Here.
Raymond?
Here.
Nelson?
Here.
We have a quorum.
City attorney report out from closed session.
Yes, council convened in closed session to discuss one matter of existing litigation, received information and provided direction. There is no reportable action.
Thank you. Do we have any subsequent need items?
Mayor, there are none.
All right. I need a motion to approve the agenda as posted.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Raymond, second by Button. Ambrose?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Button?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we're on to the consent calendar.
Background information has been provided on all matters listed under the consent calendar, and these items are considered to be routine. All items under the consent calendar are normally approved by one motion. If discussion is requested on any item, that item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Mayor, if I may, due to my business and real property interest adjacent to this project on Palm Avenue, I will be recusing myself from item 9.
Item 9, which is approving plans and specs for Palm Avenue Improvement Project. Okay, so noted. I'm going to open public comment now regarding the consent calendar. Are there any members of the public inside the chambers who would like to speak regarding any items remaining on the consent calendar? If so, please come to the podium now. Are there any items on the consent calendar that the City Council would like to remove for separate discussion and possible action? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment now and ask for a motion.
All motion to approve?
Second.
Moved by Button, second by Ambrose. Ambrose?
Yes.
Raymond? Button?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
We're going to move now to public hearings. Item 10 is the waiving the first reading by title only and introducing a zoning ordinance text amendment of the City Council, amending Title 17 zoning of the Atwater Municipal Code for site plan and architectural review. Open the public hearing, and staff may present the staff report and any recommendations.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, and thank you for your consideration of this item. What you have before you tonight is an ordinance amending the text for Title 17, which is zoning. As you've probably seen, a steady stream of these zoning ordinance text amendments that have been coming your way, in some cases through the Planning Commission. It is a series of cleanups and amendments that we're doing to our municipal code that have been long overdue. In this particular case, what we're asking you for is, and what staff is recommending, is the adoption of this ordinance that would, on those instances where applications are delivered to the city, any by right zoning, we would have the ability to rely on the other text documents that have gone through the Planning Commission and been approved by the City Council, and those are your design guidelines. It's very unusual in a situation for most municipalities that you would have approved and adopted design guidelines and then rely or require that an applicant on by right uses within the city go back to the Planning Commission for site plan review. It doesn't mean that these individual applications will not be reviewed. It doesn't mean that they will not have oversight. It doesn't mean that they won't require applications and an approval process, and in some cases the imposition of conditions. But what it does mean is that those other areas of the municipal code that require conditional use permits and site plan approvals will still be under the review and approval of the Planning Commission. Others that are by right use, which is consistent with your fifth cycle housing element, what we told the public and the state that we would do is streamline this process and make this easier based on the recommendations of the architectural design guidelines for residential uses and commercial and industrial that have both been adopted by the council. So you've given us the playbook, basically, said, here, go follow these. So we're going to, in effect, finish that cleanup work that is necessary and recommend that we do those at a staff level. Again, just so I can reiterate, those requiring conditional uses and imposition of conditions are still going to the Planning Commission. These that are considered normal and routine and would follow a by right use, we're asking that those follow the trend and follow the practice that would be at a staff level. And I'm available to answer any questions you may have on this.
Do any council members have questions for Greg? Okay. Well, I'm glad to see that it's coming along to streamline things. You know, you still have control over it, but yeah, if you have a right to do it, why do you have to go jump through more hoops? So
I'd also like to point out, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, but any time that the council requires the design guidelines to be called back for update, that is entirely recommended through this process as well.
thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? So please come forward. You have your 3 minutes. Seeing nobody come forward, I will now close the public hearing. Would any council member like to make a motion regarding this item?
Motion to approve staff's recommendation.
No, sorry.
Second.
Moved by Raymond, second by Button. Ambrice?
Yes.
Button?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes,
The motion passes.
thank you. Item 11, adopting resolution amending the fiscal year 2022-2023 miscellaneous fee schedule. I will now open the public hearing. Staff, you please present your report.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Today, for your approval, we have the amendment of the miscellaneous fee schedule. And some fees are being amended to be more accurate as to actual costs based on new procedures that have been updated. And then we've also have some establishing of fees on there. So the first few is the one I'd like to discuss is the cannabis regulatory permit. So it was amended to reflect our consultant HDL company's updated fees. And this fee is going to be an annual fee per business per year. They'll pay these fees to recoup those costs. And then on the February 13th, 2023 meeting, council adopted and approved the procedure guidelines and review criteria for evaluating cannabis regulatory permit applications. And with that, we were able to get more detail on what the process is. And so city staff reevaluated those fees so that way they're more accurate. So the cannabis application fee was updated, the cannabis application renewal fee, and the cannabis regulatory permit amendment fee was updated. And in those discussions, we found when a cannabis regulatory permit amendment is required, it may or may not require an amendment of the CUP. So we also reviewed and analyzed the addition of a conditional use permit amendment. So you'll see that addition to the fee schedule. And also in our discussions, we found a fee that was not being charged, and in order to recoup our costs that are incurred by applicants for permits, we've also established a traffic plan check review fee, and that's in addition to the fee schedule. And there was just an update on the appeal fee verbiage. Instead of Community Development and Resource Commission, we changed the verbiage to say Planning Commission. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
Actually, I do have a question. It's for man hours, it's $15,000 a year per business to the city.
Thank you for that clarification. The 15,000 is for about 14,800 is on HDL's contract per business per year. That's the whole collection and monitoring of tax, audit revenues, and compliance inspection. So they do an audit revenue once a year and a inspection twice a year.
Okay, so we're contracting that out to them basically instead of having our people to do it.
Correct.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, would any council member like to make a motion?
Motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Raymond, second by Ambrose. Button?
Yes.
Ambrose?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we're done with public hearings now. Now we're going to get a report for approving plans and specifications and authorizing the advertising and calling for bids for the installation of the Osborne Park bathroom project. So staff give their report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, so this item before you is just approving the design, the technical specification, and authorizing a call for bids. That's just for the installation of the bathrooms at Osborne Park. Just to be clear, the bathrooms were already purchased by a prior council item, and they're already been manufactured, and now they're shipping. They're on their way here to Atwater as we speak. The bathrooms will be located where the previous bathrooms were, right behind the snack stand. If you guys know where that's at, it's right south of Raymond Field. And staff estimates to come back to council on the April 10th meeting to make a recommendation to award an agreement with the lowest responding bidder. If council has any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions? Danny?
So, or do we still have porta potties out there for Little League and other use for the restrooms out there?
Yes, as of right now, Little League's providing the porta potties.
Okay. And do we, I know we, this is going to go out to bid, but what would be the estimate of completion?
May,
May? Okay. Thank you.
which kind of helps out because Little League's had a lot of cancellations. They started their season a little early, so it's actually going to get pushed back later. So maybe half the season they'll have those bathrooms.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Are there any members of the public?
Oh, you know what? Sorry. His question brought on another question. Sorry. What about what kind of traffic can parents expect while this is kind of going into effect?
They'll be working during work hours, so they'll be wrapped up before any of the games start, so it shouldn't affect any of the traffic.
Okay.
That was a good question, though. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? If so, you feel free to come forward. All right, seeing nobody come forward, it's not a public hearing, so don't have to worry about that. Would any council member like to make a motion?
Good.
Motion to approve staff's recommendation as presented.
I'll second.
Moved by Ambrose, second by Raymond. Button?
Yes.
Ambrose?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. We're now on to item 13, which is code enforcement update for 2022. Okay, so we're gonna come back to that item, probably. So we're gonna move on to number 14, which is city manager updates.
I have nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, are we gonna go ahead, or are we gonna wait? Okay, let's leave that there. My papers are gonna get out of order now, you know. Okay. Well, we will move on to comments from the public. Gisela, you want to read your statement there?
At this time, any person may comment on any item which is not on the agenda. You may state your name and address for the record. However, it is not required. Action will not be taken on an item that is not on the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to staff and/or placed on a future agenda. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes.
Okay, I want to clarify something that happened at the last meeting here. So just so everybody knows, under the Brown Act, members of the public are entitled to directly address the city council as it is the legislative body of the city. The public is not entitled to direct their comments to members of the public or the staff. So as the presiding officer here, I get to get the questions and I can pass them off to others as I see fit. Okay, so I'm going to open public comment now. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor, there are none.
Okay. Are there any members of the public inside the chambers who would like to speak? If so, now would be the time to come to the podium. Just make sure the switch is turned on there for the microphone, please, Eula. Here, Corey will help you.
Thank you. I have two questions. First, about the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm not sure if that will be addressed this evening. Secondly, it was brought to my attention a function that was put on at the Atwater Community Center in December was a place that was a little bit difficult for people out of town to find, simply because it was nighttime, it was raining, and there were not enough perhaps lighted signs or something that they could actually find the place easily. And I thought that I would address the council and see if there's something that could be put where the community center would be more accessible in the evening or night time for the public to see as they're going to events at that facility.
Okay, thank you. We'll, city manager is making notes there and she'll pass those along to.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I forgot to state my name. Eula Toka. And I'm a citizen of this city.
Thank you, Eula. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, community. My name is Alejandro Carrillo. I am a representative for Assemblywoman Esmeralda Soria, and I'm just coming tonight to invite all of you to a community coffee event that she is hosting this Saturday at 9:30 a.m. at Hope Coffee. So you're all invited, and also community is invited. The coffee is free, and it definitely is an opportunity to come out and express an opinion, let her know your concerns, and hear a legislative update. The legislative cycle just closed, and she's carrying a couple of bills, 5 of them for veterans specifically, and we'll be there at 9:30 a.m. at Hope Coffee. If it's all right, I want to give this to your clerk so you can pass out to the council.
I should have my microphone on. I'm going to close public comment now. There we go. All right, so now, are you ready? Okay, now we're going to have the code enforcement update 2022.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me the opportunity to provide a brief update of the code enforcement program in the City of Atwater. I do have a brief PowerPoint. I began managing the code enforcement division roughly in the spring of 2019. Getting here and mostly just focused on updating our processes, getting the ability to track our cases better, log our cases better. And after a short time, that obviously expanded into a few more areas. You can do the next slide. So that progressed into not only the enforcement of the municipal code, mainly in the areas of blight around the city, but also quickly escalated into working on our unhoused population within the city and all the codes that typically follow those problems throughout the city. We also begin by expanding our AVA program, and initially 2019, 2020 began taking some complaints and doing some enforcement for the planning building department or miscellaneous violations regarding that, and also some substandard housing issues as they came in. Next slide, please. So the neighborhood blight typically involves cars in the yard, discarded appliances, but the area that I think is having more impact around the city is the commercial blight. The commercial blight, it turns out to be a supporting factor for our unhoused population, and just obtaining materials to make various encampments or places where they set up tenancy around the city. So the focus is, as of the last year and a half, has just been working to develop a commercial blight ordinance, which gives us some legs to reduce materials readily available to them in the effort of keeping the city free of blight. Go to the next slide. I just provided some typical visual examples of a typical AVA violation that we find without the city. So that process does involve a proactive patrol, my officers driving around, locating these target vehicles, applying the notice to the vehicle, and then taking appropriate action after so many days have expired. The center picture, this is just a typical post encampment, and then the one all the way to the right is a typical occupied encampment. Historically, these get it set up, and then they grow in size, grow in volume, as either the encampments can grow with people or just grow in size and material. So there's two aspects to the unhoused problem. The first one, obviously, is the person, the people, and the second one is the property. So one of the misconceptions is if we have a subject, an unhoused person on a piece of property, that I can readily remove them. They can be removed. That's usually a collaborative effort with the patrol to enforce some sort of 602 letter, which would be a trespassing letter from the property owner. So they're removed via either a citation or just convincing by the patrol officers. A lot of our problems around town typically involve properties where we have an out-of-town owner. So although we readily have information who owns the property, to physically get in touch with them via phone call or email can sometimes be a several-day process. But once we get in touch with them, we obtain the trespassing letter, and then we can take active enforcement to get them removed. The portion that I probably spend more time on is property and the cleanup efforts with that. Another misconception property owners around town is that the city cleans up the private property encampments. This is untrue. The property owner, we always hold to the standard of cleaning up their own property. And it can be either into the section. We have amazing players like MID, amazing partner with the city for their cleanups, usually on it within a day or two. But sometimes we do have out of town or even out of state property owners, and it is a process to track them down and start coordinating that cleanup effort. These are some common encampments that we run into within the city. The new trend with encampments around the city is actually excavating into geographical features like ponding basins, or if you've seen, there's a common one where the levee of the freeway, they actually excavate into it and set up the encampment under the dirt. So obviously this poses lots of dangers, especially with the rain. And my understanding is there, as far as the ponding basins, there are compacting requirements for the basin itself. So this can be a exacerbated problem with repairing that properly. And unfortunately, one of the bad statistics is anywhere in the city of Atwater where we have an established encampment where they're allowed to set up, we unsuccessfully find a property owner, we do have a very large fire rate either for the vacant lot or the building. That usually accompanies an established unhoused encampment. So definitely not the direction we want. Next slide. Within the last year, we have taken on a full-time code enforcement officer, and I have 2 part-time guys. My 2 part-time employees, they also do animal service calls and community service duties. And then my full-time guy who does strictly code enforcement. This allows me, I've taken a bigger enforcement. Again, with planning and building, there's a whole mountain of planning and building violations that pertain to the code that require an enforcement level that we're trying to address. And also, I'm taking on more substandard housing complaints with the rain. Recently, we're getting lots of rental houses with the ceiling caved in, some mold issues. So those are all substandard housing measures that have to be sometimes corrected via citation. So just some rough numbers. Since our new RIM system, which allows us to more accurately track these cases, apply the processes that we do, roughly in October 2021, my division, we're close to 4,000 incidents, calls for service that we've handled, so we're quite busy. So we're just planning on continuing to grow and address more problems without the city while keeping a track on the ongoing problems that we currently have. So, any questions?
Thank you. Oh, I'm sure there's going to be some questions.
Yeah, let's hear.
I almost count on it. Probably could just start it down at that end, Tyler, and you just work our way this way.
You know, I don't have any questions really. Honestly, you're always like very accessible. Like whenever, you know, I have questions about stuff, I really appreciate that. Your team does an exceptional job, and I just really appreciate what you guys do. So, yeah, the amount of, 4,000. That's last time I checked, there's 365 days in a year, so that's quite a frequency. So,
well, we stay busy, and I do try to go out of my way to take calls from the public even after hours. I feel like a lot of it is misinformation. So if I can provide reasons why some of our processes, we get good results out of the more information we pass.
We talk all the time. So you know where I stand. I think you guys I'm losing my voice again. You guys have been doing a good job out there. Just we're dealing with the homeless population. Be safe.
It is it's definitely challenging at times, and it's just a process of we've addressed everybody. It's just a process of getting them to accept the services. So that takes time to build partnerships with them and get them to where they accept what we can offer.
I have nothing. Thank you.
A few questions. What is AVA?
This is the Abandoned Vehicle Abatement Program.
Okay.
So it's just a program through the state of California where counties set up AVA programs just to structure the removal of vehicles from the city streets, abandoned, inoperable, which is probably one of our busiest calls. We are fortunate enough to have a couple citizens around town that do frequently call in cars, and just helps them locate them, get them tagged, and eventually getting them removed if it gets to that point.
Is that only for on the streets, or is that in the driveways as well?
No, the abandoned vehicle, we have a municipal code that does cover inoperative vehicles on a private person driveway. Theoretically, those could be cited for being inoperable, and they regularly are. However, to remove a inoperable vehicle from a private driveway, say we have exhausted the citation process, it would require an inspection warrant to physically pull the vehicle off of a piece of private property, but that is an option.
Okay. And this is a rhetorical question for you because I don't want you to get in trouble with your bosses, but what tools do you need from us? I think you're doing a good job. I bet you hear these complaints all the time from folks in town, and complaints that things never get done. But I think as was already previously mentioned, your department's done a pretty good job here lately of putting the hammer down on people that need a little persuasion.
Well, it's the citation is the motivating factor to get the citation corrected. However, all my guys are understanding that compliance is the number one goal. Sometimes the citations are just incidental to get there, but compliance is the number one goal. If I had a wand to help out my program, an officer to assist with the unhoused population, if we do get to a threshold where it requires law enforcement intervention at some point to get the people removed, I do have a lot of administrative powers and resources, but I do not have the power of arrest, so that is a missing element. That would greatly improve just sometimes occasionally the hard removal of subjects from the property where they're refusing to leave. There's a lot of dynamics on why they don't want to leave the property.
Yeah, well, it is a difficult decision because it's, we can always paint the broad brush about the homeless, but there's a lot of different reasons why people are homeless. So the ones that want help, we'll help them. The ones that don't want any help and are causing problems, those are we need to.
Well, it is a undulating thing of offering help. Some days they really want help. Some days they will contact you asking for help, and then the next day that conversation didn't occur. But I understand there's a lot of factors behind that, so we have to factor those in when applying that help. But an officer would help, and again, if I had a magic wand, I would probably add another code enforcement officer. And I think there's a lot of substandard housing issues around town that we haven't dug into. If you drive around town, you notice lots of homes around town with blue tarps over the roof. There's a substandard housing condition requiring that tarp to be used as roofing that would need to be addressed. Just miscellaneous stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Right on. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Is there anybody in the chambers that would like to comment on this report?
Rich Miller, 334 Silva Drive, Pastor Victory Baptist, 1280 Sierra Vista Street. I want to reiterate that it seems like code enforcement has been doing an excellent job. I did have a question about the animal control and what the process is for that, because at one time we were sending animals to the county, I thought, but I'm not sure how that's working, because I know there are some areas where there's stray dogs and cats, and just want to know what the process was on that. Also, I don't know if this falls under code enforcement or not, but every Sunday night and Wednesday night on our way to church, we pass by an abandoned property that the city is looking at purchasing that is on Atwater Boulevard across from the bus station, where people are selling food. And I've seen it so many times that the last couple of times I've driven by there and I've told my wife and kids, we got to stop there and try their food sometime because they've been there so much. But at the same time, I know there are regulations. And I know that we have a businessman in our city who does a lot for our city, and the county was very strict on him about selling things on his property, food on his property, because of bathroom requirements. And you can't serve food unless you're within like 200 yards or 200 feet or something like that of a bathroom. I know there's no facility out there except what's on Bloss property, and that's not open that late at night. So I just want to make sure, as much as I'm for food vendors, and I think that our city council had addressed trying to get food trucks in here, I'm all for that. I think as a citizen, when I drive by, it just pops up a question mark. Is this being done legitimately? And if it's not, then we need to do something about it, because we have businesses who are doing things legitimately, and we want to make sure we protect them.
Daniel, can you please address those two concerns, animal control and food vendors?
Absolutely. I'll do the food vendor first. So One of the problems we run into with the food vendors is I think everybody's kind of caught on to the game of the hours that my division works, and I do drive along because I live here in town, and I'll see them pop up at 7 in the evening, and especially with spring coming, that's going to be an issue. So we, as far as the enforcement of that, yes, they're required to have all the regulations for to have a business, restrooms, CUP, depending on where the location's at. It would be specific to what area in town, but those can be enforced. That to be in more active enforcement, that might just require a manipulation of my guys' hours to address those, because they might be catching on that, hey, we shut down at 5 and 5:05 we're good to go. So that might be easily fixable. And then the animal control issue, I forget the question.
What are we doing about animal control? Do we send animals to the county facility, or well, how's that whole process work?
Yeah, so typically we'd want anybody in the city of Atwater to contact us directly for any animal control issue to give our officers an opportunity to fix it. They do accept animals at the county shelter from our city. I'm not sure the circumstances to elaborate further, but I would just encourage anybody in the city to contact. We have good animal control here, and we would want.
Mr. Mayor, I can help out.
Good.
Daniel on that one. We are in contract with the County of Merced for the purposes of animal shelter activities. Of course, the Food and Agriculture Code is the code that controls animal control. One of the weaknesses in the state law is cats are not considered animals for the purposes of the Food and Agriculture Code. Cats are considered to be community animals. They are not regulated by state law. And the county's animal control facility will not take cats anymore because of that factor. They're under the watch of several animal rights and animal advocacy groups. In fact, they had them stationed at the shelter. When I came to Atwater in 2019, I was very surprised that we were taking cats here, because in my former jurisdiction, we didn't take them either. And in the majority of Fresno County, they didn't take them. Usually, you work with private entities to initiate trap, neuter, release, and manage programs. I've tried to engage that with limited success over the 4 years I've been the chief. But when it comes to sick and injured animals, we respond. We do take dogs to the shelter. General public does take dogs to the shelter also. We are charged for those animals. We've done a really good job of educating our public. That cost has gone down in the 4 years that I've been the chief, but it's still a significant cost to the general fund.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Daniel. Any other public comment on that item? No? Okay. We will now move to city council reports and updates. Item 15, letters supporting Assembly Bill 293, which would allow the immediate family members of the Gold Star family to obtain lifetime fishing and hunting licenses, and Assembly Bill 308, allowing immediate family members of a Gold Star family to obtain free entry into California state parks. So the staff recommendation is to authorize and direct the mayor to execute letters of support on behalf of the city. But we would need a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second. I just had some comments real quick. And it was just that I think both of these are great, since the families have already given up, their loved ones. So this is just something to give back, to kind of honor them, and for service members that have been injured as well, for the benefits that they can have as well. So that, I think I seconded, but if not, I'll do it again.
Moved by Button, second by Raymond. Ambrice?
Yes.
Button?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Then we're on item 16, letter supporting Senate Bill 37, the Older Adults and Adults with Disabilities Housing Stability Act of 2023. Same motion to authorize the mayor to execute letters of support on behalf of the city. This, I will say here that this item would provide housing subsidies to older adults and adults with disabilities who are experiencing or at risk of experiencing homelessness. Any comments? Motion?
I keep seeing the term reasonable rent to make this happen. Is that going to be more rent control involved in it, or just a subsidy to help out the seniors? I don't know that. So if there's any clarification at all, it'd be appreciated.
I do feel it. Can we speak just about reservations
go ahead.
about it? Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's fine.
Because I've read up on it a little bit, and I don't know. The criteria seems a little broad to me on, I mean, I'm obviously more of a, instead of a handout, more of a hand up programs that help people get themselves going in the right direction. I do like the sentiment about this bill, but I just have a couple of reservations about it. Not all of it, just, yeah.
So just a little clarification, although it doesn't identify what a reasonable income is, this is a grantee program where they would, HCD would cover the difference between the 30% of the person's household income and the unit's reasonable rent. So that is still the question, who would determine and what that number would look like.
Yeah, I'd maybe like to get more information on this prior to sending a letter to support with so many unknowns. I don't know when it's going to the floors, but
Sure.
if we can get to the next meeting, that'd be.
Yeah, we could bring that back next meeting. City manager can get us some more information on that, those specific questions.
The worst thing I'd hate to see is a rent control instilled with it, plus increase in taxes to everybody else, and then the people that are helped are minimal. Then it hurts almost everybody. So I just want some clarification, please.
Okay, that's a good point. All right, so we will postpone that to a future agenda, next meeting agenda. Now we're on to council member comments. Start with, let's see, Mr. Kale isn't here, so that's Mr. Button,
Mayor, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Mr. Ambrose,
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Mr. Raymond.
Just want to thank the community coming together again. Councilman Ambrose was there Friday as we buried one of our good friends, and he was very low income as well, but the community came together and assisted the family, and we were able to raise enough funds to cover all costs with that and lay our good friend to rest. So it's just a beautiful thing, and just thank you, everybody.
All right. I did want to mention that based on Daniel's presentation there on code enforcement, that the city manager and Lieutenant Novetsky and myself met with the district attorney, the new district attorney, Nicole Silvera, last week. And one of the items we did talk about was homeless folks and how we can reach out to work better with the DA's office, better communication with the DA in both directions, and that we use every tools that we have at our disposal to, one, help these people, and two, actually help them, really. So that's all I have for that. And we do not need to continue closed session. And so I'm going to adjourn the meeting unless somebody else has something. Okay, meeting adjourned.